thing too is I would not, and I'm doing my best now, is comparing yourself to everybody else who's in your space. Turn it off. Don't, and the best advice that I can possibly give, unfollow everybody who is in your competitive space.
Welcome. This is Gilda Vanderheyden, and we have another awesome episode of the Work-Life Balance Equation. This time it's with my good friend, Patrick Kirby, the founder and CEO of Do Good Better Fundraising Consulting. If you want to take your fundraising to a whole nother level, Patrick is your guy. He has a favorite tagline that I love, which is jaw-droppingly awesome help for your nonprofit fundraising team. So anything and everything fundraising, he is the go-to expert. Not only that, he brings a ton of energy, a ton of experience and insight. I actually had the pleasure of reading his book, Fundraise Awesomer, and it is one of the best books I've ever read on the subject. So Patrick, welcome. I'm super excited to have you on the show.
Many compliments in a row. I can't keep up with the amount of niceties that were just said about me. So first of all, thank you for having me on. It's so good to see you. We don't chat enough offline anyway, so that we need to remedy immediately. Super grateful to be on the show. This is something I don't really talk about a lot, probably because I don't have time to do so, which is actually really a funny topic that we get to explore today. And then just to adding, I've been doing, fundraising and nonprofit work for about 20 years. And so I've got, and nonprofit work is really interesting because when you're passionate about something that you do, you put a lot of heart and soul and time and energy and effort into it. It's very hard to turn off. I don't turn off of work a lot. It takes, and it actually takes a lot of effort to not talk about or do work when I go and leave the office or I'm not in work mode. It's a very difficult thing to do. And I know a lot of nonprofit leaders have this problem too, because they care so much about their mission, vision, and values that they want to talk about it all the time. And it's not healthy at all. So we talk a lot about this when we work with clients or we do webinars, is that you just got to take that time off and breathe and just let it sit for a minute. It's not going anywhere. Your organization's not, going to disrupt and, sort of explode while you're going to the movies or something. It's going to be okay. So this is a great conversation to have that gets to be in the back of nonprofit fundraiser brains. And so I'm excited to be here with you.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you in terms of just loving the work so much and getting very involved in that. I do a lot of coaching in terms of helping organizations with well-being at work and creating healthier, more collaborative teams. So I really understand that. Work-life balance, generally, it's such an interesting, it's almost like a buzzword that people tend to cringe and say, well, it doesn't really exist. So I'm just curious if you believe it's possible and what your take on work-life balance is for you.
It's individualized, though. I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all prescriptive, like, here's what you should do to be balanced. My balance is a lot of work. Like, I find joy in my work a lot more than most people do. And so my balance is if I can do work and I can create and I can write and I can speak about it or present about it, that's where my joy comes from. So I try to do as much of that as absolutely possible. But I know you need to take some breaks. And so, we've got something interesting in our office. We've got a results-only work environment, which means we don't have to show up at the office and we can work wherever we want to or for how long we want to or whenever we want to, as long as our work gets done. That's it. There's no requirement to be anywhere or, outside of a stand-up meeting and outside of just some regularly scheduled stuff that we just enjoy doing together. There's no requirement to be in the office. There's no requirement to check in. It's just like, where are you and what are you doing? And can I be of any service? And here are the things that we have to get done. And then it takes a little bit of a heavy list of trust from somebody who's sort of giving that out.
Right.
It also does require a lot of trust from the employee to say that you're going to tell me exactly what I need to be doing and what I need to get done and when. So you have to be extra communicative about that. And that's a hard thing to do when you're just assuming that everybody knows what you're thinking kind of person. Mm-hmm. But it's stressed that this is nobody is going to care about this as much as I am, because I started it. I know that no matter who we hire or who we work with, nobody cares about this stuff as much as I do. So I understand that, you need to tell me where your priority is. Is it priority at home with your kids? Is priority, to travel? Is your priority to create and do something else? Good. Make it that as a thing. This is not as much of a thing as it is for me. So I have to acknowledge that out right away. And then what can I do to make a work environment that's exciting to come to work? Well, then you don't have to come to work. You just have to get a bunch of tasks done. If you do it in 3.5 hours, either A, we haven't done a really good job of explaining that we probably have to do more, or you're just a really efficient worker and that you value your time and you can get all your crap done and awesome. And now you can take a nap or go to do whatever.
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned unreasonable in terms of expectation. That's a tough one that I find that a lot of folks struggle with. How do you figure out whether it's a matter of the right fit of that employee to your organization versus just a communication error or a miscommunication? So how do you distinguish between them?
I'm always probably the one that has a communication issue. Again, that's what I'm the one at fault, right? I've either not been clear or I sort of speak in generalities, or because I really think big picture, right? I hate detail work. I hate it. I have people that I work with on a regular basis that love it and need it. And so I struggle a lot with here in grave detail is what I need and what I expect, where I just assume that everybody else can follow along my random train of thoughts, which is never the case. So that's a hard thing that I got to remind myself all of the time. So I think it might be, but I think usually if it's not a good fit, it's probably purely communication, because culturally speaking, I want to have people who are fun and laugh and understand that there's a time for work, but that's mostly like we're bringing joy and we're creating good. And I would much rather hire on culture fit than skills. I can teach you how to fundraise. I can teach you how to, work a plan. I can't teach you how to get along and read in between the lines and be self-aware or understand the goal. I can't teach that. I kind of get where you're going with this. I understand this nuance. I understand that this is supposed to not be overly stressed. I can't teach laughter, can't teach, probably inappropriate jokes. Like I can't teach any of that stuff. But I can teach you, here's our goal, here's our benchmarks, here's what we're going to hold accountable for. And I think when hiring with this immense amount of trust to not only take a brand that I created out of whole cloth and like take it and go and run with it, it takes a lot of trust for me to just go, okay, I'm going to give it up. But it takes a lot of trust for them to be communicated in a way that I'm doing the right thing so that the products that are done or the process that it's completed is done like exactly the way that I had envisioned it in my brain, no matter how insane it is.
That makes sense. But also it's always a constant struggle to remind myself that, yes, I'm passionate about my purpose, but at the same time, my family is important. And sometimes there's a tendency for me to just get super head in the sand in terms of my work. So it's definitely, a work in progress, as I'm sure it is for all of us. But are there any particular tips or tactics that you use? But what do you do to really get out of work mode and more into family mode?
It's a put the phone in the other room kind of thing. Like that's number one. And then number two, we make sure that as many nights as we possibly can, and it's probably 5 or 6 per week, we do family dinner every night.
Got it.
That's our time. And again, the chaos of making it and the chaos of actually sitting down and the fact that half my children will not like what we made and will fight about that, it doesn't matter.
Right.
That's the mode. And even if it's 20 minutes or it's 6 minutes and people are chomping down and they're already in tears because they're overtired from whatever overstimulated thing that they've done today, it doesn't matter. That's the break. And then the break as much as possible on a personal note as I play like super nerdy old school video games. And that's my only come down. And that's my personal balance with family. Yeah. It's like my personal balance with family is I'm going to go away for a while and I'm not going to talk to anybody in order for me to realize that I don't have to talk about work stuff. because I'll want to kick in the door and go, listen to all the cool things that I did today. And if somebody else is having a bad day or somebody else not paying attention to me, nobody wants to hear about how awesome your work day was.
Right.
Like if you're having a crap day and you hear somebody else like, my day was awesome, which it usually is like that. It's because that's kind of mode I'm always in. So just buy myself quiet moments so that I can just tell myself that I don't have to do that. Usually helpful for everybody else in the family. So. But we've made it very clear that we have expectations of our kids are in, different sports or music stuff. And that comes a priority. I've never, done my best never to miss any particular game or practice or thing that's really important to them. Don't miss it. And I will work around that from a work standpoint. That's just really important to me. And, work is super important and I love it more than anything in the world, but I'm not going to miss that for work. I don't want that as an excuse. So rarely miss anything. And I just force myself into that thing. They'll still be there. Still chaos. That inbox is still going to be full. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. And then any particular ways of keeping yourself on track? If you've established your priorities and you find yourself getting distracted or veering away from what you're supposed to be focusing on.
I go outside of my office and I have 2 coworkers who will keep my rear end in gear and prioritized all the time. And I ask them and I tell that I one of the things that I think was the most helpful tool that I've ever done is hire somebody specifically. I mean, multiple other duties as assigned, but most specifically is just like, I need help controlling my calendar and I don't know how to do it myself. I can't say no.
Yeah.
And I need somebody to protect it.
Really?
And that investment into my own personal well-being was well worth every single penny. And she's been here nearly, almost like it's 2 years next week. And it has been the single best joy I've gotten out of my own calendar is just having somebody who is as protective of it as anybody else.
Wow.
And will fight ferociously of like, this needs finding just somebody who's a balance act on being able to do that, to get off of your calendar. You don't need to do this kind of thing. Cause I won't say it myself.
Okay. I love that. Actually, I can think of a client now that could really benefit from a gatekeeper who kind of just is ironclad about protecting her schedule.
And that's a hard thing to do as a solopreneur, just to go and, okay, now I'm going to invest in the business, but I'm going to invest in somebody who's going to protect me. It is like having a guardian angel on your calendar. And that's been monumental.
Oh, I love that. Also, you mentioned that freedom is really important to you. So I know at one point you were a W-2 and you understand that whole world, but creating a business on your own, that's a whole different thing. So for those who don't have that structure, are there any particular recommendations you have for them?
You have to make a decision for yourself, and I would do it if to do it all over again. I'd have made that personal decision a lot earlier rather than just work 80 hours a week on building this from the ground up. Yeah. And I realized it wouldn't be in the position I am now if I didn't do the 80 hours a week. But looking back on all the things that I overly stressed about, that I could have used an extra 3 hours of sleep to just figure out that it's not a big deal.
Right.
Would have been wonderful. I would have less gray hairs if I did that. That's how I would have justified it. But when you're starting out, you're just obsessive about it.
Right.
And the other thing too is I would not, and I'm doing my best now, is comparing yourself to everybody else who's in your space. Turn it off. And the best advice that I can possibly give, unfollow everybody who is in your competitive space.
Okay.
Unless you just find joy in hate liking or hate following, just because you just get a kick out of it. You're like, Jesus, I would never do that. That's the only people that I would suggest you follow. But everybody else who's in the space or who's in even a remote space, who's really big into social and all their stuff looks sexy and their editing is great and their whatever. First of all, it's all freaking fake. Don't believe a GD thing that they're saying to you. It's all a ruse. Because they're just in this influencer world that is specifically designed to make you feel bad about what you're doing. So, but right, it's all a ruse because they, I want what they have rather than what can I do to make an impact and what am I doing now. So that one of the biggest things that I had from from a mentor was just stop following them.
Mm-hmm.
Don't look at it. Who cares? It's not even remotely what you do in the first place. But again, it's nice to have like, okay, well, they're doing some interesting things, but then you immediately get into your head about like, well, I must be doing something wrong because it looks like they're doing it right.
Right.
And you're not. Don't worry about it.
That's great. Yeah. And that shift, it's really all about who am I serving? How am I helping? And when you focus back on service, you get realigned.
And as quickly as you'll ever think you will, because you will never get more quickly aligned when you turn that off.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, well, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Days. Nothing that this I was doing making sense because I was trying to chase something that was not even in your wheelhouse.
Right. Yeah. All right. So I'm just curious in terms of when you're not working, what are some fun things you enjoy doing? And how do you create the time to do it?
I have other people who force me to do that too.
That's good.
So admittedly, like every Monday, I play Dungeons and Dragons and it's religious and it is every Monday night. I can't work because I'm playing it. So that's what I do. And again, when your brain doesn't work in certain hours, you just want to stop.
Mm-hmm.
So I will stop. And so I will do my best to play golf, though I'm usually golfing and I've got my phone on my hand. So that's stupid. Mostly if I can get rid of my phone. If I can just get rid of it, I don't think about work, or at least I will think about it less, knowing that there's something there. And that's a horrible, getting rid of that feeling in the back of your stomach, going like, oh, I wonder what I missed.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the worst. So
do you actually have any family members that help you keep the phone in the other room? I know you mentioned that earlier.
My wife will give me the look. It's not the look that I'm really looking for. It's the look of like, why do you have that out again? And do you really need it? And so I'll reluctantly like put it down. And again, as soon as you put it away, you realize you're like, oh, my eyes. Oh, look what we're doing here. Right. So I will have that. My oldest son will call me out occasionally if I'm on it way too much. So that's a humbling experience when you have your kiddo say, hey, Dad, are you still working? Yes. Because again, you like it.
Right.
And you love it. And you and getting caught up in that, so really you get in the pickle there. So
if you had your druthers, how would you design your ideal balanced day? What would that look like?
I would wake up at 4:30 every morning. And I would do, and I do my best to do this most of the time, but I'll wake up super early, go to the gym, go back and do emails and work from like 5:30 to like 8.
Okay.
And then I will just turn off for an hour, get the kids out the door for school. And then I will hardcore work until noon.
Okay.
And then I will not work until 8.
Okay.
So then everything else I want to do. So I just hardcore, like just a blitz of work in the morning would be my ideal bit. And again, there's something magical about the sun not being up and a cup of coffee in my hand and me writing out or doing things that I have either put off or have saved for that time of the day. It's my best, most creative, most awesome. I'm funnier. Like that's the thing. And then in the morning. And then late at night, when I've got that other creative spark again. But there's an hour between like 3 and 5 that I would just like to take a nap.
Yeah.
I don't nap. I drink too much coffee, but I would like to, ideally. If I had my druthers, that's what it would be. Yeah.
And then wait, what time do you have to go to sleep? And then what time do you actually have to go to sleep if you're having to wake up at 4:30 in the morning to make sure you have enough sleep and be able to make that work?
I'm on a 5-hour like sleep cycle. If that's a really good one.
Okay.
And again, I realize I'm the weirdo that don't enjoy sleeping. I know most people do. I don't. It's in the way. Or I'd really be doing nothing. Right. It took a long time to habit my way into that, where I would sleep, but I wouldn't wake up to be productive. And I've been doing that for the last couple of years, and it's been super fun. It's been a really nice game changer. And then I get tired. I get tired on the times where I'm not mentally flexible anyway.
Okay.
Well, I get all of my good juju out. I set the day up really nicely, and then I'm ahead of the game. I've got a workout in. I've got 2 hours worth of work already done, and that's before anybody in my house wakes up. And I'm like, I'm
beautiful. Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Now I'm good. Right.
Is there anything that helped you get up earlier that helped you shift or change into that rhythm?
Yeah, it was just getting up and leaving to go to the gym.
Okay.
That was it.
Mhm.
That was just that's how I started my day. So that's how it started about, a couple of years ago. And then I was just like, I'm going to rhythmically do it every day. And that's my get up time. And that's what I'm going to do. So it took a long time to do,
Yeah.
but that was now it's my rhythm. So now I just naturally wake up at 5. Now that's the bit.
Okay.
But it's not for everybody, but I love it because I just like that quiet morning time is my jam. Yeah.
I like that. And especially if you get nothing else done, you're golden.
Exactly.
It's like a magic hour. Are there any other resources, tools that really make a difference for you on the work-life balance front?
Yeah. Know your limitations, and then just know what is going to make you feel good about accomplishing whatever. That helps. So again, it doesn't take a lot of time, and it's not complicated. It's just the execution of it is the key. You could plan for the planning's sake, for planning's purposes, ever planning, but if you just don't do it, you're going to feel way worse about it because God, I came up with the perfect thing. Well, then just do it. Right. If it doesn't work, but at least you executed it, and you can look back and go, okay, well, I tried that. And then again, once you figure out whatever the rhythm is, you got to stick with it, and it's gonna be dumb. It's gonna be very dumb. Rhythm.
And go to the next one. Okay, so Patrick, and now for the lightning round.
Ooh.
Okay, so the first one is your favorite book recommendation.
Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
And I mean that. I don't read self-help EOS books. I don't. I think they all say the basic same things. And I like the idea of reading high fantasy novels to get your creative brain going and thinking in a completely different way. Right?
I like that.
So let's just say you're on a process improvement, right?
Okay.
Well, what's a better process than trying to figure out how to work your way from the Shire to Mordor and the whole roundabout way and creative things and the trials and tribulations of how you creatively get out of it? Or how do you tell a better story if you're a fundraiser? Well, read a high fantasy novel. They built an entire, kingdom, and they've built an entire reality around it. Why can't you do that with your storytelling on what your impact is? So I find that reading things that have nothing to do with what sort of goal you're accomplishing is such a better way of use of your time to spur that creativity and the outside of the box thinking that you're going to get bogged down in, who said this is so-and-so, rather than, hey, here's a creative solution to something that, triggers me, and it has to do with, wizards and magic and dragons and swords. So.
Yeah. And I love that because it's so counterintuitive. You think that you want to become an expert on X subject and you read it and that's what's going to help you get there quicker, more efficiently. But yeah, it's that thing where if you take a nap or you take a walk or you take a shower, do something totally different, your brain actually still working on it. And that's when all the really cool insights come. So most admired person and why?
Ooh, it's a boring answer, but it's the best answer, which is my dad.
Aww.
And the reason is that he started his business when all 3 of his kids, my brother and my sister and myself, were all in private school, and started his own business. Wow. Shouldn't have. That was a stupid move to do. And I remember him literally not taking a paycheck for an entire year. Wow. And he figured it out. But he had the audacity to do it, and he had a game plan, and he stuck with it, and he became successful from it because he had to succeed. And so when I started my business, we just had recently had our 3rd kid. I was the breadwinner and had health insurance or whatever, and I had to make this work because there was no other option. So everything that I learned to do, I learned from him, because I used him as my true north of what would my dad do? And that was kind of how I did it. Yeah.
Oh, what kind of business was it?
Manufacturing sales. So he was selling to Target and Best Buy and everybody else. And it was, yeah. So hard stuff, but great because he taught me that this was going to suck and get used to it, stick with it, and you're going to pay off. So I had a playbook. I was watching the playbook be built by the person who was doing the playbook. It was great. So, yeah. Okay.
And then the final question, advice you would give your younger self.
I would say, it's all part of the process. You're going to hate a lot of this stuff. You're going to love part of the stuff. And don't get too enamored with yourself, and don't get too down on yourself, because it's all going to even out in the end. You know, every high is awesome, and appreciate it and love it and just celebrate it. But every low is going to be just as quickly as it fleeting as the high, and you're going to get through it. Get too excited about any of it. Yep, exactly. I'm an excitable person, and I want to get excited about all the things, but just know that dopamine rush is going to end as quickly as the chaos that's in your brain about not getting stuff done or having some sort of failure. It'll go away just as quickly. So
yeah, well, I appreciate that. And then the oh so important question: if people want to fundraise awesomer, where can they find you?
You can go to dogoodbetterconsulting.com. You can find us there, and all the links to everything we've got, which is a book and a podcast and trainings and a Do Good University and a whole bunch of free resources and just general fun and shenanigans that we have there. Is dogoodbetterconsulting.com.
Thank you so much for watching. Patrick, really appreciate you being an amazing, energetic, awesome guest on the show. And for all of you that are watching, remember, as being your host, I have several freebies for you all. A free guide on how to focus on your priorities, and a daily happiness formula, which is a one-pager with instructions in the link below. So definitely grab a copy for yourself and stay tuned for our next episode.
Hey, friends.